6:30, so we're going to open the meeting. Thanks everyone for coming. Please know that we're being being broadcast live or just video recorded?
No, just recorded.
Okay, so we're being video recorded, so please know that. We're going to start with open session as we always do. Is anybody here? And just let me explain real quick. So open session is the time to bring something to the select board that's typically not on the agenda already. So if you're on the agenda, if you have a question, if you want to ask if you're on the agenda, I'll be happy to answer that question. Otherwise, open session is now here. Is anybody here for open session? I don't see anybody here, so we will move on to our next item, which is announcements. Katie, what's going on?
So, we have quite a few things coming up shortly. First off, on April 9th at 11 a.m. at the rec field, we have the townwide Easter egg hunt put on by Parks and Recs. I just got all the candy eggs to stuff today. The Girl Scout troop, 11809, stuffs all the eggs and sets it all on the field. Somebody will also be in a bunny costume. So everyone be nice, because again, it is a Girl Scout in there. So
that would be the Easter bunny.
Oh, sorry, the Easter bunny, yes, because there's so many little kids that watch this townwide programming. But anyway, yes, so the Easter bunny will be there for pictures. Again, that is April 9th at 11 a.m. And the rain date is the 10th for Sunday. The next up, we have Keep Hubbardston Beautiful, which we're still kind of working out a few of the details, but I do know for a fact that the Girl Scouts will be there for a bottle and can drive, and the Boy Scouts will be there for an electronic fundraising from 8 to noon. There is no rain date for this because the next day is Easter, so it is going to be April 16th, 8 to noon, one way or the other. So if you have electronics to recycle or bottle and cans, swing on by, and the kids will be out there collecting. There is a flyer that will be coming out soon with the recycling dollar amounts, depending on what you're recycling, because again, that is a fundraiser, but that will be posted shortly. And then on June 11th, from 9 to 2, we have the Hubbardston Fair with a rain date of the 12th. We have a band coming. We have lots of fun entertainments for the children. I'm still working out the details for that. We have plenty of crafters and artists and local small businesses. We also have some food trucks that will be coming. So bring a camp chair and come on down. The rain date is the 12th, but it'll be a good day. And again, it's always free to enter, free parking. And then coming up, we have in August the Dinghy Dash, which is August 27th with the rain date of the 28th, and that's 10 a.m. And if you don't know what the Dinghy Dash is, it is a cardboard boat regatta down at Brigham Pond, down at the bottom hill. You build a boat out of nothing but cardboard and duct tape, and we race them for fun, because why not? So, and there are prizes involved with that. You can win a trophy or gift cards depending on where you place, but it's always a fun day out, and it's just entertaining to watch. And then, of course, we have Field Day in the fall on September 17th. The Lions and myself work on that, 9 to 3. And the rain date for that is the 18th. And then we have a new one coming up this year, which I named Non-Such Night after the apple in Hubbardston. And that will be on Columbus Day or Indigenous Day, whichever you prefer. Weekend, October 8th, with a rain date of the 9th from 4 till whenever in the evening, and we're planning on doing food trucks with a band, and then eventually a free movie. So as the sun sets, so that will be a fun night out. And then of course there's always, if you're really interested in upcoming stuff, feel free to send me something for the light fight or anything else that's coming up in the winter. But that's all I got for right now.
That's it?
That's it for right now. Okay. I might add some more stuff.
All right. Well, thank you. So our next item is minutes and consent agenda. We've got two items on there. They are the minutes from January 24th and the resignation from Denise Kemet from the Economic Development Committee. So there we are.
Do we have a hold on any one of these? I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda by unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Okay, unanimous. So on to new business. The first item is an old item, and that is there's two poll petitions. I guess I'll first say, is somebody here from National Grid?
Javier Morales, National Grid.
What's up, guys? Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
All right, so we had a little start and stop on this a couple of meetings ago for us, which hopefully is cleared up now. But basically, on our agenda, we have them as the poll petition continuation of New Westminster Road and the poll petition continuation of Brigham Street. So there are two. Is that accurate? There are two?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, just making sure. Last time it was a little confusing, so.
Yeah, it's all part of the same project, but yeah, being that they're separate streets.
Okay. So being as it is a poll petition, there is some stuff I have to read, so I'm going to do that again. So I have it in front of me here. Okay. Okay, so the first one that I have here, I'm just going to read it. It's kind of long, sorry, but to the petition for joint or identical poll locations to the Board of the Selectmen of Hubbardston, Massachusetts. Massachusetts Electric Company, doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Brigham Street, National Grid to install 2 JO poles on Brigham Street, install stub poles 52-84, 32-84. Location approximately as shown on plan attached, which we have. Wherefore it prays that after due notice and hearing is provided by law, it be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining and protecting features as it may find necessary, said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan field herewith marked Brigham Street, Hubbardston, Massachusetts. Number 304-79328, December 6, 2021. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. The petitioner agrees to reserve space for one cross arm at a suitable point on each of said poles from the fire, police, telephone, and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by it exclusively for municipal purposes, and then it's signed by National Grid. So that's the first one that we have there, and we'll sort of start there. So that, again, just to restate, because that was a lot on there, that was the Brigham Street, National Grid to install, 2 jointly owned poles on Brigham Street, install stub poles. So is there anything you have to add to that, and we'll just sort of start the discussion?
No, I don't really have anything to add to it.
Okay, so that's accurate, what we sort of said there?
We'll be installing a lot of poles down the road, but
Yep.
if those are the 2 poles in question, yes.
Yeah, okay. So last time we had a few questions, when we actually had a resident show up. Heidi is not here, I don't think.
I spoke with her actually earlier today.
Okay.
She was okay with the pole going where it was. She was just concerned that it was part of a different project that we had. That's not any of our concern.
Okay, well, thanks for addressing that, guys. We appreciate it, and your patience in coming back here as well. I know it's an important project and a project that's not necessarily imminent. We did happen to learn about the strength of the cable that's going in there too. That was told to us. But does anyone here have any questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question. So, did you get in touch with Heidi Norcross?
Yes.
About this pole, and so is the pole in a different location, or is the pole going to remain in the original location that?
The pole's going to remain in the original location. We were going to remove the dead tree that's located adjacent to where the new pole is going to go. Her concern was not being able to see coming out of her driveway.
Yeah.
So I'm talking with her and saying that we were going to remove that tree. That was her main concern, was it something else blocking her view going out of there.
Excellent. Great.
She was compliant with everything. I'm grateful that I gave her a call actually and talked to her.
Yeah, good. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. That was pole 3284, by the way, on Brigham Street.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, any further discussion? Questions? No? Okay. We'll entertain a motion then.
We're doing it once.
Yeah, we're going to do one at a time.
So
yeah.
this is Brigham Street?
This is Brigham Street. I did it out of order just because that was the one in front of me.
Make a motion to accept the poll petition and explanation for Brigham Street as explained.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, Ruth, thank you. So we've got another one. David, I don't think I find in our packet here the one for New Westminster Road, just the cover sheet.
Let's see what we have here.
Okay. Bear with us for a moment, please.
While we're looking for this, did everybody sign in? Tony was asking that, make sure everyone signed in. Sorry. Did I just distract you, David?
You want help, or do you give you something to do?
got a data lunch.
Okay. All right, let me just make sure this is it. So this is New Westminster Road. So once again, I'm gonna read this. So this is the petition for joint or identical pole locations. The Board of Selectmen, Hubbardston, Massachusetts, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. New Westminster Road, National Grid to install 23 JO poles, which is jointly owned poles on New Westminster Road, install new mid-span poles with a bunch of them listed that I'm not going to read here. Anyone who wants that information, they please come to us. Location approximately as shown on plan attached, which is in here. Wherefore it prays that after due notice and hearing as provided by law, it be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures that may find necessary. Said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan file herewith marked, New Westminster Road, Hubbardston, Massachusetts, number 30479-328, December 6, 2021. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. Your petitioner agrees to reserve space for one crossarm at a suitable point on each of said poles for the fire, police, telephone, and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by exclusively for municipal purposes. Signed by National Grid, Massachusetts Electric doing business as National Grid. So there's the New Westminster Road one. Does that sound right to you guys? It does? Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we had any questions on this one last time. I just don't think we had a break between the two petitions that we could actually figure out. If anyone wants to sort of thumb through this, it's basically New Westminster Road with poles coming across. Just one moment, let us
Sure.
just sort of get through
Yep.
this, and I'll definitely
Just let you
recognize you
know.
in a sec. Okay, I'm just going to
Okay.
keep explaining. So anyway,
Sure.
if anyone wants to see these at all, so okay, all right. Want to entertain a motion, then during discussion.
I'll make
we
the
can-
motion to
Let's see that.
accept the poll petition explanation and placement for New Westminster Road as explained.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Sure, sir.
Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. The property also fronts on New Westminster Road and is part of that petition. I just have one question for you for National Grid, and that is, will your poles support cables be all ground anchors, or will you be also anchoring to trees?
No, we will not be anchoring the trees.
All ground
All
anchors.
ground, yep.
Thank you.
Nice. Nice when they are answerable. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous. Thanks, guys. That was easier.
You're welcome.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right, next item on new business is Roman numeral 5C, which is the fiscal year 23 budget and school assessment. So, David, how do you want to start this up?
Well, I'm new at this, but the budget came in at a much higher rate than we had expected. I believe our assessment is 12.5% increase, roughly about a $700,000 increase. The budget that I presented back in March 7th did not contemplate an increase of that magnitude.
All right, so back to the old days is the
That's
way
right.
I'll
That's right.
first say it. We were saved a little bit by COVID, I think, and the funds that they received, meaning the school, and maybe it kicked the can down the road. Maybe, who knows? So it's a 12.97% increase from last year. Those are the numbers. I was on there was a school committee meeting, kind of a budget subcommittee meeting before the actual school committee meeting last week or a week and a half ago, which I was on for a couple of hours. It was Zoom. The public isn't allowed to go to school committee meetings yet, so it was all Zoom. And they went through. They had sent us a 122-page presentation beforehand, which I went through, and then they went through every single page, of course, during the meeting. So, it's for those of you who hadn't been part of it before, it's a lot of information that they do their best to justify and explain how they do their budget. For those of you who have seen this before, you see a lot of wish list stuff, meaning the school who decides that they don't want input, even though we've tried so hard to convince them to get input from the 5 towns before they do their budget so they can see what we can pay, because we're the ones who pay for it. They don't do that, and that's just not their process. It never has been in however many years Quabbin's been, and they don't want to change. And we're working on it. We got interrupted by COVID. We're trying to get together with the 5 towns. We a few years ago, I visited 4 of the other towns, select 3 of the other 4 select board meetings to sort of see if we could get it all together, and then COVID hit, so some of that stalled. But we're at where we're at now, and they basically have begun the process where several iterations will go through. They've already done one, so that they started the meeting off with saying, hey, that one you saw originally, we adjusted it by $400,000 because we lost this, or we went away with a few things. They'll do that again, and we'll have to go back and forth. But the reality is we have a budget to vote on and pass, and we can't even come close to doing that currently. What we did last time is we went through our budget similar to what we did this year as our normal budget. Said that this is what we can pay, and we went to town meeting and said, let's vote on that. That's what we can pay. That's what we tried to sort of explain. And then it went back and forth again a little bit, and we ended up paying a little bit more, but it wasn't debilitating, and sort of got there, and that's what happens a lot. But this is a big number, and I just will say one of the most important things that is on there is just as the town, we have savings account. We call them stabilization accounts. We call them, the school does too. They have this thing called E&D, which is excess and deficiency. That's their savings account. Just as we use our savings account, such as stabilization or free cash before it gets into stabilization. Free cash is basically how much money we have left after the previous year. We've used that, I know it's a lot of information here, but we've used that many times to fund our operating budget. So basically stuff that we're supposed to put in savings, we say, well, we can't, and we're going to go pay for the fire department for it. We're going to pay for this, we're going to pay for that, we're going to pay for the council on aging. So that's funding your operating budget, which you're really not supposed to do. Neither are they with their excess and deficiency, but they typically do because that alleviates how much the towns have to pay. They decided this year they're not doing that anymore. So that's kind of the glaring thing on there that they basically said, and it's zeroed out for allocation to 2023, fiscal year 2023 funds, is that they don't want to do that anymore because their auditors told them don't do that, just as ours say don't do that, but we have to anyway. So I asked that question, of course, and it was answered as they've been advised not to. And unfortunately, I hate to be cynical, but it really is a song and dance we've seen before, and we're just going to have to be part of the process in the way that we've been in the past, and hopefully we can build up enough support from the other towns. We weren't even the biggest increase. There were other towns, I think 15% somebody else was, and they can't afford that either. So we'll have to see how this goes, but that's just a summary there. David, I don't know if you want to add to that at all, but that's just my assessment of things.
No, I have more questions than answers here. How do we let this unfold? Do we meet with the school committee? Does finance committee have to play a role?
Yeah.
All right.
We do. We asked them to come in, which they will. Cheryl Duval, the administrator of it all, and the superintendent Shieldmuir. We should invite them in to go over things. And one of our select board members, Mark Wigler, is on the
School committee.
not just school committee, but the budget. So he's the chair of that, and so he knows a lot. He knows all the nuts and bolts, and he does a great job explaining it, and, you know, he's been here a long time, so that's another person we'd like to invite, in addition to the remaining school committee members as well, but he sort of led off the meeting that I attended via Zoom, with an explanation of things, and with that first discussion of how the number was higher already and it's come down, so, anyway. That's where it stands. I don't know if anyone has any questions, anyone on the board has any questions?
Should we let them know before they come to this meeting that we're already saying that it's too high for us?
You think they don't know?
I wonder if the other towns have already responded. I'm just saying, you know, if we're gonna invite them to come here.
Yeah, of course, we will.
$700,000 is the cost of a police department. We just.
I've been on here, and this has happened every year.
Yeah.
This one is a little.
It is.
So
I'm
One sec.
Oh, sure.
No, you go ahead first.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna schedule a FinCom committee meeting probably next Monday. Do you want me to extend an invitation to Quabbin to come to that meeting, or do you want me to hold off and let you talk to them first? Do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference. I would
Okay.
rather think we gotta deal with it. Yours is the next meeting, you know,
Yeah.
if we can tend to, great. I would do that.
Okay, all right, will do.
Sir?
Yeah, I used to work at Quabbin as a para for like 5 years. And I'm basically from the private sector. And I said, if this school was a private business, it would go broke. Okay? So there's so much waste going on up there. I mean, people get like, I like Sue Musnicki. She was there forever, into her 70s. She retired. Now she's working back at the school. That's coming out of our pockets. She doesn't need to be there. And this is not just her. It's dozens and dozens of positions that have been created, and it's like they just do whatever they want. And it's ridiculous.
So you know, it even makes it trickier now, because that's true. That actually happened in town too. When we got this money during COVID to fund the fire department fully, right? Which is something we don't normally do, or the police department fully, with appropriate number of officers at all times. It's kind of hard to go away from it, right? So I think that some of that happened as well from them, and so they just want to stick with it because they got it, right? And that's the sort of thing we're gonna. You know, people have to make hard decisions just like the towns do. So to scale it for you real quick, so our town, our overall budget is in the neighborhood of $10 million. Theirs is $37 million. So their small choices or small decisions make huge effects when it comes to what they do, without a doubt. So there's a million questions, and there's all sorts of reasons, and there's retirements, and there's benefits and insurances, all these things that are part of a normal business that you know, have explanations to them that we just have to, you know, really get into the weeds to understand what matters and what doesn't, because the people who look at those numbers every day know how to explain them better than we can receive the information sometimes. So, sure.
David, question. So on the Montechusett, the tech, it appears that also came in higher than we had. It looks like almost by $35,000 higher than we had estimated.
Right.
With 4 new kids.
So the Montechusett's trajectory for Hubbardston has been going downhill for several years in a row, based upon declining enrollment of Hubbardston students. That trend has turned around with an increase in Hubbardston students attending. So that $35,000 difference in the budget that I presented versus what the assessment is, that can be made up within the new growth figure that I got from the assessor the other day.
Well, it looks like, you know, even considering the new growth piece, it looks like a good portion of whatever we had planned on not spending there is going to go towards the Quabbin, so there's not going to really be any additional funds. How much, what did you get for the new growth figure?
I budgeted something on the order of $30,000. Is what I presented to you on the 7th. The new growth is going to be 17,000 higher than that, 47,000. And it's a conservative estimate.
Okay.
So I have a sneaking suspicion that it's totally unfounded and wild, but that the district knows that we all got ARPA funds. And ARPA funds, so these are post-COVID, even though we're not really there, but everybody, all towns, different, depending upon your size, depending upon all these factors, got a certain amount of money to be able to spend on lost revenue and other sorts of things. The town of Hubbardston got $1.4 million that we've already received sort of half for, that you'll hear some more about tonight if you guys are sticking around. So I don't know if that's really why the numbers started so high, but if they think maybe that towns are really flush with cash, that there's some of that can go around. I don't know. Anything further? Any additional questions on this? We have lots to talk about in the coming weeks, but this is more of a just sort of where we're at scenario here. No? Okay.
Well, I have a question. Can ARPA funds be used to balance our budget? I don't think they can be, can they?
They're now completely blanketed at up to 10 million for anything. So I don't think they could specifically be put towards the budget piece, but you could buy something probably from ARPA instead of, in lieu of, charge there instead of. Does that sound right, David? Am I making it up as I go?
There is a way of running ARPA funds through your budget in order to generate new free cash in the next year. That sounds an awful lot like money laundering to me, so I don't want to have anything to do with it.
But the only other way would be if we were gonna buy, let's say, $100,000 item out of our budget, operating budget, we could pay for it out of ARPA instead.
Great.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean,
But that's not the, that I don't think that's anyone's current intent of
No.
the ARPA funds. We want to spend it on things that the town needs, not putting a higher amount towards the school budget that we're never going to be able to catch up to.
Yep.
And this is one-time money. If you spend it on your operating budget, then you're going to be paying double the next year.
Right.
Okay, anything further from anybody on this? Before we move on? Okay. All right, we're gonna move on. This is old business, we're calling it, just because we discussed it, briefly before. We wanted to sort of make sure we got the word out before we had a more in-depth discussion about it, but there are two items related that are next, and they are the discussion of High Street property acquisition and the preparation of two articles, High Street property and an environmental review for potential for June annual town meeting. So, okay, so we've got a property on High Street that is becoming available for the potential, use of the town through a purchase. So, David, I'm going to defer to you again real quick, just for a quick summary beyond what I just gave.
So it's a vacant lot on High Street that abuts the Curtis Recreational Field, 4 acres. There are some wetlands involved. There's been an initial expression of interest of selling this property either on the open market or...
Sorry, I can't hear you.
So there's a invitation to express interest in this parcel on High Street. It's a vacant lot, 4 acres. It abuts Curtis Recreational Field.
Yep.
And so there's an opportunity to purchase this property. The selectmen have taken a look at this. There's more questions that we need to resolve. We are bound by law in terms of what we can offer. It requires a 2/3 majority vote of town meeting to authorize the town to acquire property.
You
Okay.
would buy it, why?
Right, so that was the next thing we were going to talk about. So the reason that it was brought forth was to purchase it to be an auxiliary parking area for, as we sort of do this master connectivity plan with the town center and the rec field and all that, to be an additional place for parking for, town events that either happen at the rec field or whatever. It didn't get that far in exactly itemizing what was going to be done for, but that's the general gist of what it was for. So There is, if anyone wants to, you want to start handing that out. So, okay, so there's a map up here that shows. You'll see if you guys want to take a copy. The one that's shaded when it does come around to you is the lot in question. So this is New Templeton Road. So this is High Street, and you can see sort of lot 48 that's on there. So as that's going around, does anyone at the table want to talk about this at all, and what their thoughts are on, benefits of the town having this, or drawbacks?
Yeah, some of the benefits could be parking. Some of the other benefits that were brought up were putting a walking path, which would connect to the walking path that is already there, and connect to the sidewalks that are coming up that will be done when the town center is done, and also eventually when we get that far, High Street. By connecting all these walking paths from High Street through the rec field down to Gardner Road and down to the center of town, not only does it give the town a better way to get around and be more productive, especially when you're talking about school kids and the senior center being able to have a safe place and a nice little loop to walk, it also makes us more applicable, I don't know how else to say it, but more likely to be able to get grant funding like Complete Streets and things like that for our town to make things better. Now my whole thought is, I know that people don't want, the residents on High Street don't want a lot of through traffic. So my first thing is, it needs a gate when it's not, that parking lot, if there is a parking lot that would be put in there, isn't being used for overflow parking for a large event. So therefore, you wouldn't have people just going down High Street to go in the back way. Because I know, point blank, that is what most of the biggest downfall of that area would be excess cars driving down High Street for no reason, when it's just a regular Tuesday to go in the back parking lot, when there's plenty of upfront parking lot. It'd be more, the gate would be opened up if and when it's needed, for when there's large soccer events, large baseball events, Hubbardston Fair, things like that, field day, so that way people, because the biggest problem with those is you see people start parking on 68 on the actual street side, and it becomes a real problem. It's the police department is worried. They're not supposed to park there. They're very worried that we've had discussions during like the Hubbardston Fair and things like that kids are going to get hit in the road, because it is Route 68 and people do drive down there. But at the same time, if there was a gate on it, then it would only be opened up for those purposes that we would need the overflow parking.
Let me jump in real quick.
Yep, go ahead.
So on 68 specifically, because we've all been there. I parked on 68 myself. We have the town center reconstruction project, which is imminent. So it's going to be coming out to bid in June, and the work's going to be completed in the next call it year and a half. When that is redone and that connects all the way from the rec field down to Elm Street, which is the street that heads down to the school, there will be new curbs, there will be new sidewalks, and there will be new bike lanes. People can't park there. So those areas already take overflow portions. We have had a generous neighbor in Kelly in Go Green who's allowed us at times to park in her parking lot, but that's not a guaranteed thing by any means, and it can go away at any time. So we're just trying to come up with ways to, when we have this larger project, this larger connectivity project coming with the town center, to be able to make it so that we've got an alternative that makes sense for the half dozen to 10, or I don't want to throw a number out there, some amount of events over the course of a year that this would be important for. Anyway, sorry to jump in.
No, that's fine though, because that is the biggest problem with the rec field. The downfall is the lack of parking when there's a large scale event. And we definitely don't want to see our residents, especially our children, at these soccer events getting run over by a car. I'm sorry, I just have a problem with that. So I don't want to make these large events and have people get injured. That's not the intent. The intent of these large events, or soccer or football, or baseball, is to have, a safe place for our residents or other people to come and enjoy the day. And this could, in theory, solve the biggest problem of our beautiful rec field, which is the parking. And to help solve the problem of High Street residents, it's a simple gate. I think that's the biggest downfall. I mean, I don't know if any of the High Street people, obviously I see a few hands that are gonna go up, but if you have concerns, now's the time, so that way we can figure this out now. So, I will shut up.
Yeah, Francois first, okay?
Quick question, I think I heard you say there's wetlands there. Can you describe the wetland situation on this lot?
I'm just aware that there are wetlands there. I don't know the extent or the nature of them.
I do. It's about midway, there's some wetlands there.
I mean, is it pretty large and would
No,
preclude
no,
park,
it's-
the development of a parking lot?
Not that any fill wouldn't take care of, so.
So, no, so real quick, so the 4 acres, a portion of it's gonna be used for the parking lot, correct?
Right.
Not all.
Right, not all of it, it's just that's the lot is 4 acres. The point is not to put a 4-acre parking lot out there by any means, it's to put it in places that can get approved by town departments and all that sort of stuff. So this is just, like, my house lot's got a bunch of wetlands on it, right? But I didn't put my house on it, but it's in the lot. So that's all we're saying here, is that it does exist.
Just a follow-up question on that. I'm assuming therefore you've already studied this lot and you have deemed it it's possible to build a parking lot in this.
There is a plot plan being done right now on that property.
But is the plot plan taking into consideration for parking?
The plot plan is for the dimensions of the property.
Correct, but I mean, considering the fact that you have wetlands, has there been a study made for the possibility of putting a parking there? Do we have that information as of yet? Or is
No,
this
this
totally?
is just an introductory discussion.
We're pretty early on in the
Okay,
process here,
gotcha.
so we don't have
We're
that.
just-
Yeah, one
yeah.
sec, I'm gonna make an order, so you guys, I will recognize you in order from where the hands went up. Ma'am?
Nancy Alonso, 33 High Street. And so I've got a number of points, but I won't take a lot of time. So a few years ago, we went through this. High Street residents put a lot of time into it. And we, at town meeting, we had a lot of support to vote this down. And I don't see that changing because of a gate. So my husband and I were discussing this on the way over, and he made a good point that the town already owns land that was originally for a senior center across the street. And I know that means crossing the street, which hopefully our policemen would take care of manning, a street crossing for maybe 4 times a year, that we would need this parking spot area. And maybe you could create a parking lot over there in that area that would potentially eventually be for town offices or senior center or something over there, since we already own that property. Or if you had some of this property that was in the back, adjacent to the field, and not come out to High Street with any road. And then you take the road that's already there, and make that a little bit nicer, the driveway around the field from the 68 entrance. The 68 entrance, no, the drive, the
backside?
yeah.
Great.
And bring that around to a parking area that you would make on the wetlands or wherever, that you were gonna have that be right in back of the fields. And you'd have your parking area for your days there. No one, of course, wants to see any children get hurt. But again, we're talking like 4 to 6 times a year that we would be needing this extra parking area. And those are the 2 I can think of right now.
Okay. Jesse?
Yeah, as Nancy said, this project came up 11 years ago, I think, and there was almost unanimous opposition to it on High Street, and huge support for us at town meeting, because I don't think anyone in town could rightfully vote for people's homes being destroyed by, so that we could have parking for a rec field. So there was a lot of support.
What do you mean destroyed?
Yeah.
What?
I just said, what do you mean destroyed?
Because traffic coming up and down a very quiet street. But anyway, the point that I want to make is,
I mean, she was just saying 4 to 6 times a year.
But that wasn't, I'm sorry. That
You'll
wasn't the
give you a
initial
chance. Give you a
thing.
chance.
4 to 6 times a year, but we know, I'm sure, that that is going to increase and that, you know, there'll be more times than that, and pretty soon this parking lot will probably be open all the time. But anyway, the point that I want to make here is, when this happened, prior to this, there was a plan drawn up by ZOC that said that if Dolores's property was subdivided, there would be 80,000 square feet around her house and 3.1 acres that was available to the town. So I don't see where the 4 acres is coming from, although I did find out at the Registry of Deeds that a new deed was written for Dolores's property where it was somehow 2 deeds written for this amount of property, and the house was not 80,000 square feet, which is absolutely not allowable. You can't subdivide a property and leave a house without 80,000 square feet, nor can you leave it without adequate frontage. And I don't know what price the town has been asked to pay for this unbuildable lot. I've heard it was substantial, but, and the wetlands, I can show you, Francois, on this plan where those wetlands are. And the road from High Street would have to go right across the wetlands. Yes, they would probably have to be filled in or replicated.
Whatever map you're looking at, there's been other maps done since then with different
Okay.
measurements.
Well, this was ZOC, and it leaves you with 80,000 square feet for your house, and then the remainder is only 3.1 acres, and the wetlands, I'm sure, haven't changed. But
Al?
Yeah, it's going back to what Nancy had said, that lot across the street that the town owns, okay? For those occasions where you do have something substantial taking place, where you anticipate a lot of vehicular traffic and a lot of people attending, you could work a detail into the budget of some of the things that you're doing. I know on Hubbardston Day or Field Day, when we have a lot of vendors there, you could just maybe increase their cost, maybe $1 or $2 to pay for a traffic officer to be there with a crosswalk and an overhead stoplight, just like we have in the city. When you come up to the stoplight, you press the button, you want to cross the street, it gives you 5 to 10 seconds, changes from green to yellow to red. Then you proceed. And if you didn't think that was good enough, then you could get an officer there. Another thing that was discussed, or some people have brought up to my attention, is, you know where the shed is? Again, I don't know if this is true or not, just something that was mentioned, that was a possibility that corner was going to be used for tennis courts. Okay? So, the idea of having a gate that wouldn't be open summers may not be a fully thought through idea. Because if tennis courts are going in that back corner, the most logical way to access it would be through High Street. And if you combine tennis with pickleball, which is an up and coming sport here in Central Mass, that would probably bring in even more people, because public pickleball courts in the area are very limited. That'd be more vehicular traffic that would take place there.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of that backfield is so wet.
Yeah.
Well, if it's that wet where you know it and bring it here, and we've already discussed it.
No, the one that you're referring to with the
Right.
shed.
Well,
that field is very wet. I can't see any kind of, courts being put in there. It's like, it is very swampy.
So is the parcel we're talking about. Obviously, it's got wetlands. That field is no good. If you could, as Nancy said, extend the road that goes into the back to the shed. Extend that road and just buy a small portion of the back lot. Okay? And you could say, well, we're going to use that for parking. And it doesn't interfere with High Street at all. None whatsoever. Okay? The other thing that.
They don't like us.
What's that?
I said you don't like us.
No, that's not true.
Well, have you driven on High Street?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can drive my car into the potholes and lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Working
Yes.
to improve it, you know, sometimes there's, you know, no good can be done with good intentions. But that's why we're here tonight, so everybody can give their opinion, including yours. And thank you. Go ahead, Al.
I apologize. Broke my hat? Broke my train of thought, I apologize.
All right, we'll come back to you. In the back?
Basically, this was presented I'm sorry, I have to wear a mask, whole long reason.
It's all good.
But this was presented and voted down at town meeting before. The same things do exist. There's still wetlands back there. You'd still be putting a parking lot behind Eunice's house. You would still have kids driving their cars back there, hanging out, doing God knows what, which they were doing in the dugouts before. We all did it. I'm not saying these kids are evil. But now you're giving them easy access to behind her house.
Sir?
I heard somebody say it's a non-buildable lot.
Okay.
Is it?
I think that's being determined right now.
Oh, because
There's
the market value of a property that's 4 acres is pretty flat. It's probably 60,000 at least.
There's a 2-acre lot in Hubbardston that just sold for 80,000.
Well, then you're gonna get more.
So if it's
So
a
I'd sell
buildable
it.
lot, if it's a house lot, then it's worth more.
Yeah.
My question, or my,
Came back?
yes, sorry, I apologize. My understanding from chapter 40, section 14, is that a town cannot purchase a property within its boundaries for more than 25% over the assessed value. Am I correct in my interpretation of that statute?
Yeah, so it's Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 14. Says that any property over $35,000 in value has to be bid out. There's also language within the Community Preservation Act that you can buy property higher than $35,000 value without bidding, so long as you're paying no more than the assessed value or the appraised value. The appraised value would be higher than the assessed value.
According to the Registry of Deeds, the assessed value for that raw parcel is much lower than a rumored price that has been going around for the actual cost sale of the property.
Right.
So
I
how do
think-
we,
I think
how do we
there's
get
two-
to the
there's
point
two-
where we're going from the law to assessed value to an exorbitant price?
There's two things that are happening right now. First of all, I've asked, is there an appraisal going on the property? And I'm told that there probably will be. So without that information, I don't know what the appraised value is. I'll have to wait for that information to come in. The other is, what is the article that we're going to be composing? Is it going to be a CPA article, in which case we don't have to bid, or is it going to be a general purpose article, in which case, if it's over 35,000, we will have to bid?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't think the select board can put together a CP, I mean, you can make an application into the CPC to apply for funding, but you can't write an article for CPC funding.
Yeah, no, we're just discussing it.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's correct.
that's 100% correct. We're just discussing, it's pretty early on here. So we're just discussing the options. The options that we can do, we would do. The options we can't, we would start the process of what needs to be done, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. Sure, Jesse.
Could you tell me what side of 68 the sidewalk is going to go from the center of town? Is it going to go on the rec field side, or is it going to go on the other side? Because
It's going to go on the rec field side. Yep. And I'm just thinking, like, we looked at those plans for a long time, and they ended up adding some work, but it goes all along. There is no sidewalk on the other side. There are dual sidewalks when you get to, the main town center proper, but not from the rec field to the church. Yep.
How is the town intending to pay for this?
Pay for what?
Purchasing this land?
You know.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We just
We
heard
just
the
want-
school budget was,
Understood. So it's just a question of what our options are for paying for this,
Right.
which are not in place by any means yet. And there are many considerations to make. It's just a discussion here.
All
I
right,
hope everybody
so
knows that.
CPA is one possible source of funding which wouldn't affect the budget. Borrowing would be another possible source of funding where we could plan that cost impact in future fiscal years. That's probably about it.
no attempt to look for grant funding or anything like that to offset?
Could go for grant funding.
Can capital planning and the finance committee and conservation committee, can any of those contribute to this purchase too?
So you want to say that louder so make sure everybody heard it? Sorry. Well, there's a few people that probably can't hear you.
You said the CPC, but also capital planning and the finance committee and other committees could contribute to this too. I don't know how that works, but.
It doesn't.
Doesn't it?
It's the voters who give it to us.
Yep, go ahead.
So I have two questions. So do we have like a rough estimate of what the town would be thinking they're gonna spend on this?
Yeah, so we're in a little bit of so you just heard a few things. You heard some discussion of the ways that we can purchase it. However, it's a little bit of a tricky spot because depending upon how that goes, there's certain, things that we would want to keep within an executive session relative to prices at this point. It's not, hidden from any of you, right? But it's so that we understand, because we do not clearly, what our best position would be relative to maybe competitors. So, I don't even know the answer to that yet because we haven't gotten that far, but even if I did, I think we'd still have to discuss that first, in that format. But she's got a second one, then you, Al, okay?
And my second question is, look, I know that you guys you voted to do a feasibility study for John's Auto for a public safety building to cut down costs, which initially that land that you swapped on 68 was for a public safety building. So right now, you're seriously looking at a place where you own land on 68, right where you're going to put a bike lane, right where you're going to put crosswalks, because that was in your plan as well. Why would the town spend anywhere from the assessed value of $11,000 to $95,000 when you already have property that you could make into a parking lot with easy access to the front of the playground?
So over here, we're talking about, people's opinions on things. So I'm okay. Al?
Thank you.
Eunice, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay.
Anyone on the board here want to talk about this at all? Have opinions or?
Well, as far as the land across the street, right, you don't have immediate connectivity to this piece of property,
Correct.
right? You still have a street you have to traverse to get over to the recreational field. This property abuts up to the recreational field. And you folks seem to be limiting it just to a parking lot. But once we decipher what we can actually put in that property,
So it could be used as a tennis court.
I doubt it would be used for a tennis court. We don't have funding for a tennis court. I don't think there's enough space when you consider the wetlands and everything else.
Yeah, really. I meant, based on what Ms. Young had mentioned, or Mrs. Young had mentioned earlier, let's say it's only 6 events a year, okay? Whether it's the inner city Springfield, Worcester, Boston, we could put a big wide crosswalk with a stoplight overhead where people could press the button coming from the parking lot on that opposite side that we own and just allow people to walk across the street. The sidewalk is going to be, I'm assuming the sidewalk is going to be going up that high.
No, not even close. The sidewalk ends at the rec field. And then the other problem is, and this is where you kind of got me with, oh, that sounds interesting. by making, if possible, connecting the front of the rec field with High Street with a walking path. Then we open ourselves up as a town for more grant money with complete streets and other options that we are not able to get right now because we don't look good. We're not in a position, we don't have the walkability, we don't have the connectability. And that's part of the reason why this may, depending on how it shakes out, because again, this is the initial meeting. We don't have half the answers we need, but it could make our town so much better valued-wise by getting grants and funding for future projects that do nothing but benefit us in the long run.
But you also adversely impact an entire street and an entire neighborhood.
Yes.
Better for who?
Walkers?
Better
By
road.
I'm not going to argue back and forth because that's the whole point. Is that what we want?
Right, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying.
But it's like how I don't understand how a walker would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Susan?
What's the dollar figure for these grants you're talking about?
Ryan pinged off a couple, but he didn't say dollar amounts. But they were like complete street funds and.
What is a complete street fund?
So I'll actually go into
Go
this
ahead,
a little
please.
bit.
Thank you. Your turn.
So what, for example, the sidewalk that we recently built on Elm Street to connect Main Street to the school, that was part of a Complete Streets grant that we got for a couple $100,000, $238,000. So those are available to all towns, either between $200,000 and $400,000 to be able to do small type projects.
Okay.
However, you need to look attractive. You need to have a good answer. Ours was the kids need to get to school safe. What's better, right? So this is what Katie's talking about is when you can sort of connect. And then another one is a STRAP grant. So that is a small town rural assistance program or roads assistance program. Both are used. Where if you've shown that you're using, you have a good purpose for it. The most recent one we actually got was when we did Old Westminster Road because it connected us to Westminster because it had a way to go through that was really hard for us to get Flag Road, for example, because it ended, even though we tried so hard to say, look, the campground at the end really needs a new road. It didn't work. But so everything we can do to show it being an attractive project, to create connectivity, to create business and all that sort of stuff. Not just business, but you guys know what I mean. So anyway, that's the description there.
Great, thanks.
We live in a historic moment with the recovery of the pandemic. There's a lot of federal and state money that's been floating around. The U.S. Treasury has designated $9 billion to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This is going to be distributed in the form of competitive grants for infrastructure. So there's quite a bit of opportunity here and now to get some grant money for your infrastructure, which needs a lot of help. And I've never seen this kind of money on the table before in my career. So, the iron is hot. Now's this time to strike. Maybe if not this lot, but some other lot, but take advantage of those dollars.
Okay. They went up at the same time, so you guys fight it out. All right, I'll choose that. I'm gonna choose Jesse.
I just want to say that, it's like every 5 years there's some major change proposed by this town for High Street. Like the people who live here, and we're so many of us, this is a real neighborhood with a lot of houses that are closer together than anywhere else probably in town. Every 5 years there is some proposal that someone else in town from some other area of town thinks would be great for the town. But what is always neglected is, what about the people who live on the street? What about our enjoyment of homes? People walk up and down our street now all the time. People drive all over town to walk up our street. And you know what? They can walk in the middle of our street, and we love to see them because there is no traffic. There's no traffic on our street, pretty much except for the people who live here. And we enjoy that, and other people who drive from over town here enjoy that. And yet, select board after select board after select board, and Parks Commission and select board members always try to come up with these ideas which will just destroy our street for the way we enjoy it. And frankly, the values of our homes. And it just astounds me, on the one hand, you're talking about there's no money to educate our kids, and then on the other hand, we can spend however much on a parking lot for a rec field, when a lot of the people coming here from out of town, if there's trouble only 5 times a year, Katie, maybe you should consider busing people like every other event does, rather than just having parking.
So I guess I'll say, you know, it's our responsibility as a select board to, you know, we're looking to improve the town, and we're looking to discuss as adults every opportunity that's presented in front of us. Maybe the same or a similar opportunity gets presented in some form over time. I actually, this is my 9th year, almost finished on the board. And I've never had a High Street discussion before, except for recently when we were trying to improve the road. But that, you know, I got scathing emails about, you know, trying to just, you know, literally just improve the road and repave. So I get it. I realize the venom that can come out. But it doesn't scare us from discussing these things, because we have to. That's our job. It's not just High Street. We do it for every street. And so that's why we're here tonight, to hear this input and the good ideas that I've heard some tonight as well. And I just wish there was a little bit more partnering, because I get it, you've snake bitten and you feel you're snake bitten because of past things, and you've been here longer than I have, and that sort of stuff. But things can evolve too. They may start here with a discussion on our agenda, but they can evolve. And so if good ideas come out and we can partner and really work together instead of against, you know, maybe it turns into something else like you're talking about. Maybe it does, Nancy.
Dan, I don't think, so when I first moved to High Street, because I'm not a Hubbardston person, but when we first moved in like 28 years ago, whatever it was, it was the fact that it was so close to the school that I could walk my kids to school at that point, and I could drive there and be the last teacher there every day. Anyway, it's a community. It's a street, but it's a community, and it's the only side street in town, and that's what I was told when I moved here. We're literally really the only side street that connects the town. But I mean, there's no other street probably in town that I know of that has, you know, its own like parties, that has its own book club, that has its own. We are a community, and to see it change, and my kids grew up, and my grandchildren grew up. I don't have to worry about them getting hit on the street. It's that kind of a street, and we hate to see that part given up, unless it's something really, really beneficial. And I'm sorry, most of us, I think that I've talked to on the street, and I know there's a lot of people who aren't here also that we've talked to, that just don't feel that this particular item, this particular parking lot and road, that's what we're talking about. A road and a parking lot right now.
Can I don't want, sorry, do you have more? I don't
No.
want to interrupt. I just have a question. So, seeing that a lot of you are here, and what I'm hearing is you definitely don't want cars whatsoever, whether there's a gate or not a gate, it doesn't matter. You don't want cars going onto High Street. But you said make a road. So, would there be
No, not a road off from High Street.
No. Yeah, no.
Oh.
If somehow that walking path going back there was turned into a road, and you could only access it from 68, but there was a walking path that went to High Street to do the complete streets connected, so there's a nice walking path, but the only way to drive a car was from 68 into that back lot. Would you, as High Street peoples, find that acceptable or not acceptable?
A walking path that would come onto our
The High,
street.
yeah, so like make a walking path that entrance onto High Street, but the only way, if there was able to do parking, and if there was a way to come into 68, drive it around the side, like we turn that walking path somehow into a driveway of some sort so we could access it from 68, would that be acceptable to residents on High
So
Street?
you're talking taking that property and making a walking path through it?
Yes, but there'd be a parking lot back there, but you could only access it from 68, not High Street. So that would alleviate any cars going onto High Street to keep the High Street down to a minimum. Would High Street residents find that acceptable?
In the back? Okay,
If
Nancy, can I
that
just?
was actually the final plan, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stand there so I can see you. If that was actually the final plan, you probably wouldn't get so much pushback.
Okay.
However, because of what happened 11 years ago, where at every meeting we attended, that was the final plan, until we looked at the plan and there was only a road and a parking lot, and there was nothing else on that plan.
Okay.
That's
So
where you're
just
hitting the
worried that it
animosity
will
from, is
change,
because
but-
of that.
Okay. So, but if it doesn't change, and we put this forward, and we figure it all out magically, and we get enough money somehow through grants or however, we figure it out, and there's no street access to cars, and I'm making it abundantly clear because everyone has to hear this proper, to High Street, it's only a walking path that would have any access to complete.
If it was just passive recreation that didn't
Yeah.
end up with a road cut through the woods, where you know kids are gonna be back there partying, you know people are gonna be doing, like, bad things happen in the parking lots in the middle of the woods. They just do. If that wasn't something that could happen, I don't think you'd get so much objection. But, personally, as a taxpayer, the property value cannot be ridiculously high, saying we're gonna get CPA funds or federal funds or this fund. It's gotta be reasonable.
Yeah.
And we have to show a need. And when we have space for a parking lot across 68 with crosswalks already planned.
There's no crosswalks
need.
over there, that's the problem.
No, but there's going to be. when we-
No, there's not. It ends, that's what we're trying to say. This map, the sidewalk goes towards Hubbardston. It doesn't go the other way. That's why this is so important in order to be complete street.
Right, but like if you were to put a parking lot in that land of very own, you could put a crosswalk right there. That wouldn't.
All right, I understand.
Yeah.
I do, I know. I'm not trying, it's my job to move along. So, Jassy.
Yeah, I just would like to point out too that complete streets is not a done deal. You're also proposing with that a huge change to High Street with sidewalks all the way up the side of High Street, which we don't have right now. We have one sidewalk on High Street that I haven't seen anyone on in years, and in fact in the summertime the grass is this high. So that's assuming I keep hearing complete streets. I know.
Well, that's for grant funding to go get after the fact.
To go get sidewalks,
Well, to
$1.5
get-
million.
No, that's a separate.
No.
Complete Streets is actually just, no, I'm gonna tell you because I know. So there are different things that have been discussed. The Complete Streets we're talking about is only a small section of sidewalk from Main Street, several $100,000 worth up High Street. The 1.5 million is a completely other project that is like the town center project, which is, you were present at that meeting we had however many months ago. If that ever happened 7 years from now or something, which we haven't had another discussion on it. It was just for a preliminary design, and that's when I just started getting, scathing emails about. But anyway, very separate. So the Complete Streets versus sidewalks all the way and new road, very, very different discussions. So what Katie's talking about with this sort of connectivity, Complete Streets thing is much, much more passive than that.
I personally, I want to apologize if anything I said towards you, or comments that I made, rose to the level of being venomous. I don't consider anything.
No, but I don't
consider
some.
anything that
It
we
wasn't
said
you.
here tonight at that level.
Wasn't you at all? No,
Okay,
this
cool.
is the discussion.
I have a question about the walkway, the walkway from High Street. So basically what you're doing though, by putting the walkway in, which is understandable, you want to get to the park, you're still going to have a lot of vehicular traffic for those events on High Street, because then people will be parking on High Street unless you're gonna make the whole street no parking, right?
Which you can do,
So-
but that's,
But
yeah.
that's
it's-
not in your plan.
That's, well, that has,
So you're gonna have people coming from GFA or Main Street up to Park, and then we're gonna have to have police presence there to regulate the parking, to access the walkway, to go through that back entrance way to the playground.
unless I had fireworks, that would have enough.
Well, I mean,
Draw.
okay, yeah, but we don't alleviate the problem of vehicular traffic.
Well, yeah.
And in fact, we almost compound the problem, because once people know, well, it's busy there, let's go park on High Street, and we'll just walk through the back way, then we have to have police presence in order to direct the traffic. Or we make High Street one way, or we do whatever is recommended by a DPW.
But I'm confused, why wouldn't they just park in the parking lot?
You're anticipating.
If you add a, no, because that was the thing, if you add a parking lot,
They're gonna add.
that only.
But if that was full, the overflow would go back to High Street, right?
Yeah, no, I don't,
All right, yeah, in the back, go ahead.
Well, if there was a parking lot and a trail, and I was going to a packed event, I wouldn't park in the parking lot, I would park on the street, so I can avoid all of the traffic
There.
and go through the path, so I get exactly what you're saying. And I know that that's
usually
a
not,
thing.
it's usually not, if we did a parking lot correctly. The goal is to alleviate the parking issue, so that way there is no people parking on the side streets and on the street itself. That's the goal. So if we did it correctly, it would work. If we don't do it correctly, then no, it won't work. But that's the whole point of trying to, we don't even have a plan yet to be able to figure it out whether it 100% will work or won't work. That's why we're talking about it, but.
Sorry?
Does anybody know how far it is from High Street to where this proposed parking lot would be? Like, is it a quarter mile, or 3/4 of a mile?
There's no plans yet.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
You guys might know better than us. You guys know the lot.
Yeah.
I know back in my house too.
Well, it's kind of hard to pick out dimensions if you don't have a plan.
Yeah, of course. What's up?
I'd like to just make a point from, because I'm getting the sense that some people think this is a done deal, et cetera, and so on. The whole point of tonight is informative. We're informing to you. You are certainly giving us feedback and information. We have giving us a lot of things to think about. Obviously, we have several things that are going on that we need to get answers to, regards to the plot, et cetera, the money. So I want to make certain that's clear to everybody. This is not a done deal cast already planned out. This is just being discussed at this particular point in time. So I think that's important that you take that home with you, because you don't want people thinking, well, this is what they're going to do. Katie's coming up with different suggestions. These are all good things, but I think we need to remember this is not already a done deal, so please don't be thinking of it that way. We're collecting information. And if I might add, I think we could, if there aren't any more things, we want to shorten the conversation now and move on if we can.
We'll allow a little bit more here, but I noted. Jassy?
I was just going to say, from the plan that was done by Zoc, it looks like 465 feet.
What was that?
Tenth of a
The plan
mile.
that was done by Zoc, it looks like it was 465 feet from the road back to the...
That's the depth of the lot?
No, 460. Oh, sorry. 465 was from where to where?
From High Street back to the rec field.
Oh, okay.
So
I
the
think,
whole length of the lot.
okay, I thought actually somebody was asking how far up High Street from Main Street.
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Got it. Thank you. All right. Well, maybe one or two more if there are any. If not, we're gonna move on. We've got some other important things to discuss
Can I
tonight. Are there
ask
any?
when the work on High Street will start? Is that going to be this year? Start repaving High Street and the sidewalks?
No, it wouldn't. There's still a long way to go
It
on
is, okay.
if any of that was going to actually happen. There's still public meetings we would have to have and all that.
Okay.
So there's nothing imminent happening on High Street, or ever. Anything further from anybody out there? No? Okay, all right, well, we're gonna close that item now. Well, actually, hold on a sec. So we do have another item on here that was prepared two articles, High Street Property and Environmental Review for June ATM. I don't really think we're there. Anyone here at the board think we're there?
Table that.
So we're going to pass that item over, of course, and we're going to move on to our next item, which is ARPA recommendations. So anyone who wants to stick around, please do. I am going to give a minute or two just in case people are filing out of here, because then it gets loud and it's hard for people to hear.
Thank you for coming, we appreciate it.
But if you stick around, feel free. But I am going to give a minute or two for people who aren't going to stick around to leave.
Yes, that's loud.
I know what happened, yeah. Yeah.
And they interfered with our chambers. So what I'm saying is,
I mean, it's clear. I understand. Thank you.
and it is a community in itself.
Clearly.
Okay?
All right, thanks for coming out.
Well, I could probably help you out with the quorum.
Thanks. We got a battle in front of us, so
That's why I-
annually. All right. Thank you.
You know that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Then you know what we went through.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna. Wait a minute.
Katie's good at this.
This is the palette.
Whatever the sidewalk.
This is actually across the street.
Sidewalk. Obviously sidewalk.
Sidewalk goes like, oh, you
But it probably doesn't go to the full length. Midway. No, this gets us to.
Yeah, I think we can double check, but I'm pretty sure this they use for all purposes.
I didn't pass this, but, you know, this, I.
So consistent.
Yes,
Not the
and
wrong
it's pretty
ever.
prominent.
But you can just do mass offset.
I can do search for mine.
I'm pretty positive.
If it makes you.
No, I'm pretty positive. Trail.
No, well, no, that's my class. My maiden name is
That river is called.
So what,
The one that comes out over on.
so what,
How what?
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah.
It's 41 and a half.
It goes all the way around there. Yeah, like you come way up here by John's Auto, past John's Auto.
Listen, I thought switching names would make life easier.
Yeah, I know. I can all over the place.
People spell my maiden name wrong less frequently.
what's your name?
The Monroe.
Draven.
With Draven.
What you gotta say with the accent. What's that, Lithuanian?
No, it's
That's
Polish.
why yes, that's why
You can't tell.
we're trying to figure out what would
Round
be
face.
acceptable to High Street residents.
Every time I walk,
All right, can we get the meeting back under control?
I don't know if we lost Dan.
Yeah, but this is just
Every
so
time we go to a Polish
preliminary.
deli, they lost it. Polish to me.
Oh, really?
This was
Yes.
brought
And I'm like,
front of the town.
Yeah, gather it.
What do you think's gonna be the rise?
The old stocks?
Yes.
The old
Oh,
orchard?
that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Big red.
Are you ready, Dan? Yeah. No, that's okay.
All right, sorry about that. We are going to we're going to reconvene now. So if you're here to socialize, please hold off a little bit for that. We're going to get back into our meeting. And the next item is old business, which is ARPA and the recommendations from the ARPA committee, and I'm going to turn this over to Heather.
Awesome, thanks, Dan. Before we begin, I'm just going to call our ARPA committee to order, just because we do have a quorum with Chris, myself, and Susan, although I don't think we're going to actually speak on anything together as a committee, but we want to make sure on the record, so 7:50 we'll open our meeting. We do have it posted just for the purposes of tonight's meeting. So our ARPA committee has been meeting. I think we've met about 4 or 5 times at this point. Every time we met, I feel like the rules to ARPA funds have changed in some small way or some large way. And we've tried to follow the process. We got started a little bit later in the game than some municipalities, and sometimes we look at it and kind of think we could have waited even later and been right on track. When we started meeting, we discussed how we were going to move forward, how we were going to operate. We decided to take the approach of requesting projects from the community and also town departments to see what ideas were out there and how funds could be potentially spent. We ended up doing a request for proposal. We used the city of Fitchburg. They had some good documentation on file, so we took that as our template and we kind of rolled with it. We did come back to the select board to keep everyone apprised of what we were doing, and in doing so we actually created a matrix. So the city of Fitchburg used a matrix. They had several different categories for things such as community need and return on investment. And a few other factors. Those are actually, I know I sent a memo to the board, so those are in the Excel spreadsheet, the overall categories of them. So we had tangible impact, lasting is what that is, how many years, community need, alignment, return on investment, efficiency, and change. And what we had done was put together our RFP and got that posted. We called for projects, I think they were due like March 1st. We had 21 applications for a total amount of requests around like $1.8 million or so. Our total funding that we have been told we're going to get from ARPA is 1.4 and some change. And currently we have about half of that already in the bank from last year when they did the first disbursement of it. Once we received all the applications, each of the committee members took the packets home. They also had the electronic applications, and everyone decided we were going to review them and score them individually. So everyone took the applications, took the matrix, scored every single project, and then we compiled that into one large spreadsheet, and then we grouped those into the highest ranking projects versus the lowest ranking projects, and we just started the discussion there because we had to pick a point to start. So what we have here tonight is after we initially reviewed on a high level 21 applications, we went back and we looked specifically at the ones that were the higher ranking, which I think was about 11 or so. And at that point, the committee last week just voted and discussed moving up 8 of those projects to the select board for recommendation of approval. These were not all unanimous votes. Some of them were split votes. We did include in the memo, or I did include in the memo, the minutes from our past 2 meetings, one being approved minutes, one being draft minutes, because we haven't had our next meeting to approve those last ones, as well as all of the documentation for the applications for each of those projects. Before I go into those 8 projects of what they are, does anyone on the board have any questions of the process?
I just have, a question.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So on the spreadsheet that was given to us,
Yep.
and we're seeing a lot of this for the first time as
Yeah,
well,
I haven't seen it.
recently. So we're seeing it for the first time as well. So the 4, 5, 6, the 7 categories that you talked about that were in there, could you just state again? So each member rated them from what to what?
Sure. So each of these categories were ranked 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
Yep. And this was on the matrix that was actually part of the request for proposal. So anyone who picked up the application to submit an application had a copy of the matrix that was used. Each member then took the matrix. The matrix, even though it gives certain terms, people are going to have their own subjectivity as to how long the scope of a project could last, right? There are questions on the application that would lead people to provide that information, but sometimes the information is not provided, so the individual evaluator is going to have to make a judgment as to how long the impact of a certain project is going to be. So you have that. You have tangible impact, community need, alignment. So the alignment's the interesting one. That's how well it aligned with actual town goals. So in our RFP, we referred people to both the select board and town administrator goals, as well as master plans and other documentations that were already in place, including the housing production plan and so forth, anything that was out there. Return on investment. So this was essentially if there was contribution of additional funds, and to what extent. Efficiency, are we putting in the same amount of money as we're getting out, essentially, or are we putting in more and getting less out of it? And then change, and the biggest change piece was whether or not the project will move forward with or without these funds. So if this is a project that is only in existence and only going to be accomplished by having these funds, then it ranks higher than if those funds are not available. And it didn't really matter, I think each of us as committee members took a slightly different approach to how we scored things. Some people were more conservative on the numbers across the board, some people were higher, but at the end of the day, it's a cumulative score. So it adds everyone's consistency up to the end.
Okay, and one more question. So did you, I see the applications that you provided as part of your memo with attachments to us. Did you get any applications that you guys bounced because they were incomplete?
No, so we didn't bounce anything. At this point, what we did is we went in depth in conversations 2 meetings ago, and we ended up deciding to focus on the higher scored projects first, and to get through those and then see what we had left for funding and continue down the discussion path. So at this point, we only have 8 to recommend. We do have additional discussions, and we have a next meeting coming up this week to talk about all the other projects that we hadn't talked about yet. So those are the ones that are not highlighting the gray, so the lower scoring ones. And then we'll review as well, anything that we might have passed over at this time.
Okay, and so to restate, that's actually kind of answered my third question, but my second one to restate, were there any applications submitted to the committee that maybe the person or people submitting it didn't understand what they were doing, and so they were incomplete, or you just sort of threw them out because they were incomplete applications, or did everything you receive, if they're on the list, I'm assuming you received them. I'm saying, were there others that people just sort of threw something out to you and you said, you know what, that's incomplete, it's not in our form, or some other reason? Was that something that happened?
No, not as far as I know. All 21 applications are on the sheet here. As far, anything that came in, unless David deemed something incomplete, I don't think he did. They all came to the committee, so everything's accounted for. I know David had mentioned on the next meeting, I'm not sure if I had put the Keep Hubbardston Beautiful Annual Townwide Cleanup in the listed agenda items, but it's intended to be there. Okay. If it's omitted, it was through administrative error, not intention.
Okay. All right.
Do you have another copy of that by any chance?
See, this is why I bring hard copies.
So every application submitted had been considered. Yep. On some, we needed varying degrees of more information, which we are working through, and David is working through and whatnot.
Thank you.
So I only have this copy, Jeff, but before I leave tonight, you can have it. Or I can share if you need. Here's the little chart if you're looking for that.
Thank you.
I know, it's going to bother me too. All right, so are there any other procedural questions on that?
I don't have any.
Okay. Jeff, Chris? Well, Chris, you were there, so. Katie, do you have any procedural questions? No. Jeff, do you have any procedural questions?
No, not at this point. No.
Okay. Danny, ready for me to jump in?
I'm ready, thank you.
Okay. I lost my page.
No, I got it right here.
I know, but I lost.
You lost your whole binder. No, right there.
Thank you. All right, so the 8 projects. So the first project we had here was the, and these are ranked in order of highest score to lowest score that were approved. The first one we had was the Public Safety and Town Hall Feasibility Study. So again, this was the project, I know we discussed at several select board meetings, that was proposed from the town, from David and Ryan, to look at potential for what to do, including looking at John's Auto as a potential site. And that came to about $65,500 is the estimated cost for that. Do you want me to go through each of these, Dan, or see if there's any questions on?
I think you should just, I think you should go through them all, and then we can come back to them unless somebody has like something they really pressing they need to ask, like me.
Do you have something pressing? Oh, that was an example?
Yep.
Route 68 improvement easements. So this piece has to do with the actual cost of the appraisal work that was done for the preliminary work to be able to move forward with Route 68 project, as well as the cost to actually compensate property owners for the use or the easement itself. And this is a maximum amount of $89,150. I believe we're still waiting to find out if some more people are going to donate, David had said, so this is essentially the cap of what we're looking at. Couldn't come in less. Communication portable radios, so this was a request from the fire department to upgrade their portable radios. I don't recall how old, but I know it is in the application. They are quite a number of years old and not as effective as they once were, so that's in the amount of $17,400. Lombard Road Reconstruction. I know we've had lots of discussion on this board with regards to that. And I believe it was this board that actually recommended to David and Ryan to actually put in for this, for ARPA. But essentially this would cover the cost of doing the complete,
Full depth reclamation.
thank you.
What?
Full depth reclamation, so it's not a overlay of asphalt, it's a full depth reclamation of the pavement system there.
For $575, including culvert work. The next item was the Agra metal blower, which we've also discussed on this board. This was a request from DPW. This is a piece of equipment that attaches to one of their vehicles they currently have, I believe, Dan. It's the...
Yeah.
It
Good
goes
enough.
on a truck.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
All right, so it attaches to the truck, and the idea is that it will cut down on our extra pieces of
Street
leftover that we have to dispose of.
Correct. Street sweepings and catch basin cleanings.
Okay. And that's the actual amount of that on the invoice came to $7,675. We have Ragged Hill Road Habitat NCM home build. That was a request for an additional $25,000. They had looked to raise, I believe, initially from the town's end as the community to support the project. I believe it was about $40,000, and then there was a request for the $25,000 because things have been tight and harder to get as much funds. So the amount came to $25,000. I know there's also a CPC article or CPA article on the warrant for this, and again, this was, I believe Alice brought this to us originally a couple months ago. We had talked about it, about putting it through to ARPA as well as to CPC at the same time. So it has been discussed by this board. The next item is the Town of Hubbardston Essential Employee Premium Pay in the amount of $60,000. So this is essentially providing additional pay to those who were employed at the time during COVID, depending on what their role was and what their existing level of pay was. Unions should be a little bit different. And I believe Ryan's plan on this was that once he had the funds approved, he would provide an application to employees. They could submit the application, there would be a deadline, and then he would determine based on the requirements of ARPA pertaining to premium pay, how much money each individual would get. Any questions on that?
Could it come out under that?
I don't have the answers on that.
Could it come out under that dollar amount if enough employees do not put in, or is that all that fund's going to be given out regardless?
So my understanding of talking to David is, this would be how much we have on the table, and then they would apply.
Okay.
And they'd have to divvy it up. Is that
Yeah, they have to.
correct?
They have to meet certain criteria. They can't be an exempt employee under Fair Labor Standard Act They also cannot make more than 150% of the average salary for the county.
And then you fall into some definition of essential, I guess?
Yes, face-to-face or not major modifications to the office or home.
So is the goal to distribute the full 60, or is the goal to go by every application and then it is what it is at the end?
So
If
the
it's
ARPA,
under, it's under.
so as far as the ARPA committee goes, our goal was to say to the select board, we recommend this article in the max amount of 60,000. So then, for this board to
That
decide.
still does not answer my question.
What is your question? Rephrase your question.
Okay, so if, say you have 20 employees putting in an application.
Yep.
And are those 20 employees gonna get divvied out the 60 grand?
No.
Depending on where they are, or it's gonna, so they're only gonna get, like, there's a cap?
Cap.
Okay, so in other words, the full 60 grand may not be given out. May.
Correct.
If there's enough, okay.
60 grand was the number presented to the ARPA committee based on the information in the totality that everybody had, David, Ryan, of what that number could looks like.
Okay, so that's the highest, okay,
So that's our best guess estimate at this point in time.
okay.
So that's what we allocated.
And then the last project we have so far is the electronic sign request from the special events person for $48,400. Well, I'd say committee, but there's you.
No, it's just
Committee
me.
of one. And this is to replace the current event sign that we have and is located on
Not even event sign, it's the Clark's Corner.
Clark's Corner.
Clark's Corner, yeah.
Yeah,
So the current place with the very heavy pieces, very limited letters.
yeah, it's gonna go on the other side of the sidewalk, so it'll be a little bit closer to the fire station.
Yep.
So, those are the 8 projects we had. The only thing I put in here is just remember that, you know, this leaves $555,296 in ARPA funds left on the table for further appropriation. And remember, we only currently have approximately $700,000, give or take, in the bank. So we'd have to decide whether, you know, we actually move forward if all of these were to be approved by the select board tonight and expending them right away, or if we held off on 1, 2, or some portion thereof on some of them until we got the rest of the funds.
And the rest of the funds are coming when again?
They're coming in May or June.
Okay, so pretty soon, right? So it
Yes.
would be a short-term deferment.
Yes.
Right.
So
Most
this
of
is
these
basic-
probably wouldn't even happen.
This is
until-
basically the first allotment.
Yes, yes. Well, we wanted to move
You had
forward
21 applications, so that you have 8 here, which leaves you 13 still pending.
potentially, yes. Although, keep in mind that not all of them could theoretically be approved at the amount requested because it's for a total amount of more funds than we have currently.
And theoretically, or I'm not on the committee, but during the second phase or whatever that you just did, is there going to be another application process?
We did leave open the door for doing additional projects to be called for at the time. I think David put it, yep.
July 1st.
So, but we'll see. I mean, we got to work through the rest of what we have now. We did go through, if you look through the minutes and the draft, there were some projects that were in the higher ranks that we didn't move on to the select board. So, at this time.
Because realistically, this Lombard Road isn't gonna start before May or June, to get this money, any kind of money paid out to it. So the second round of ARPA should be in our accounts, correct, before that large quantity even goes.
Yeah, so we need to certify that we actually have the money in the bank for that particular
Okay.
project and.
To go out to bid and
Okay.
actually.
Go out to
Yeah.
bid.
But can we approve it?
You can approve it now.
Okay.
We'll have internally what I call an air traffic control meeting where we take all these different projects and just sort them out in terms of the priorities and their timing, and make sure that the cash flow is managed that way.
I'm a little concerned about the applicants who are small businesses, because this first allocation, we haven't addressed the smaller businesses, and that's certainly one of the important things we want to keep in this town is our own businesses. So what's the plan going on?
So we're meeting with everyone else. So anyone who we haven't already met with or anyone whose application's not on here. So everyone who's non-town. department we're meeting with on Thursday is the goal, except I think we've heard from one person that they're unavailable, so we'll have to figure that out. But we'll start meeting those. We did have very initial discussions 2 meetings ago, but there were a lot of questions, so I think we need to actually have live bodies in the room to be able to go through those pieces.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna throw it out to the board first before we go out to the audience here. Does anyone have any questions beyond what we've already asked here for this? I know we got 2 of you on the committee, but no. Anyone out there who's been listening in have any questions about what we're doing? Yeah.
Yeah, as a member of the Cable Commission, I was wondering, we never got any notification of any paperwork to complete in order to address using some of that money to bring high-speed broadband into the town. I understand that Governor Baker was also this week announced, I think it was like $500,000 or $5 billion, something in that a general amount. Okay, now going back, I think with Dan, before Dan's time as chairman, I think you were on the board way back when Rhiannon was town administrator.
Yeah, I was the chair then.
Yeah, okay. And at that time, Governor Baker came up with a proposal to provide high-speed internet access to lower income or under smaller towns in the central Mass area. For some inexplicable reason, it stopped right in Princeton.
Of course it did.
We couldn't tap into that line whatsoever. Rhiannon tried to get some money. She tried to making calls. She gave a great effort to try to get something done, going through Ann Goby's office, possibly the governor's office too. Nothing happened. As a member of the Cable Commission, that's one of the things we talk about all the time, especially now post-pandemic. Having high-speed internet access would be beneficial to all the families here in the town, especially if the town could own it and run it and operate it, like they do in Shrewsbury. I was working one day with a gentleman we were in Wendell, just in the shadow of UMass. And the lady there was a member of the select board for that time, as you people are. And we were exchanging some small talk before we went to do our job in the woods. And we asked her, said, well, what's going on in the town, what's happening, yada, yada. And she said, in Wendell, they had just approved money to bring high-speed internet access to the town, which increased land values in the town. Because now, at that time, for that town, graduate students at that time, and I'm assuming even today, could access and call in to the Graduate Research Center from their homes and their apartments. Whereas before they couldn't get there. Wendell didn't have fast enough communication in between the town residents and the university. So she said, land values have gone skyrocketed as a result of the approval that the town spent to bring this in. Okay. My board didn't get any notification, and I know probably it's not your fault. We haven't met that much. Our chairman hasn't been well, but I would like to be notified as a member of the board when the next round comes up for this money in order to address this issue, to try to bring this to the students and the families here in the town.
David, do we have an all committee email? Like we can send one email and it goes to a chair of every committee?
Yeah, so, you get 1,000 emails a day, so it's easy to drop a stitch in that situation. But what you can do right now is you can go to the Town of Hubbardston website and you'll see in the committees, ARPA, and there's an application right there.
Okay. We have a meeting coming up Thursday afternoon with the Cable Commission. So I'll bring it up then at the meeting. And we should address this issue and go into her application process.
By July 1st?
By July 1st, but I was also going to say that there's state money for infrastructure, broadband infrastructure coming down the pike, so I'll keep you in the loop on that.
Thank you. I did some research on this topic. I had no idea that you guys were addressing it tonight. I didn't really come for this topic. I came for High Street, as you know. But Wendell spent $3.6 million getting their whole town wired for high-speed internet access. Okay? I know on the cable commission, when we put it out to bid, we only got one bid. The only cable company in the town. And they've been historically the only cable company in the town. No other cable company submitted a bid whatsoever for the town. And even then, during that commission, during our hearing, you guys said basically certain areas of the town, because they're so rural and so far out and so sparsely inhabited, they really didn't project that they would even be providing them with cable internet access because it just wasn't profitable.
Okay, thanks, Al. Anyone have anything else they want to add to the ARPA discussion we're having? Deb? Hi.
Hi. I am actually the chair for the Habitat Build here in Hubbardston. So, as mentioned, we have our application in, but you also all know that we also have an application in for the CPA funds. So, in terms of talking about juggling money, I just wanted to make a suggestion that perhaps should you decide to award the Habitat House the money that we're looking for through ARPA, that you hold on to it until the town meeting happens. And if the CPA money gets voted for, then you just keep the ARPA money. Clearly, because we're not looking for both of those things to happen, but there's a little bit of a time warp here. So if you should vote on it, just don't spend it out to us and hold on to it till the meeting. And if we get the money through CPA, then that'd be great.
Yes?
Yep, I'm on the same committee, but I'm also on CPC. So, I mean, alternatively, if you want to fund it outright, we can pass over the article which CPC, which we've approved for town meeting, and it will go back into the affordable housing funds. We just wanted to make, we are trying to make sure that we can pay these people. The end of the bid is June. And we've done much better fundraising. So we actually, but also there are prices that, the house exceeded the prices that were originally bid.
Of course.
And so our goal was originally to raise $35,000. We've raised something a little under 20. It was way less than that. We've gotten a couple of quite generous gifts. But also there's a gap that Habitat's facing. That it's it raises its money too for these projects. And those final numbers aren't in. And there was an add-on. But anyway, so either way you do it, we really want you to understand we only need the 25,000. We don't need it twice. And the earliest it could, either way, the money will be, CPC will put it back into affordable housing if you decide to fund it this round. If you decide to wait and see if town meeting funds it and you want to have additional ARPA funds,
All right, so, I guess two things. First off, it was pretty dire the first time you came to us with this, so I'm just pleased to see that seems to be an end, a positive end, because it didn't look good the first time we were discussing things. So I think that's my first reaction is that. My second is, what's going to be the least confusing to people? You know what I mean? Like, I know that's kind of a crazy question, but meaning at town meeting, because we're having part of all these conversations on how this is being funded. Not that I think it's a big dollar amount that people are really going to jump on and want to get against, but so if it was approved at ARPA, that article would just be stricken from
would
town
just be
meeting.
passed over, and the money would go back into affordable housing funds.
Yep.
Which we
intend to use.
We're working very hard on the lot 57, and we have other projects in the works for affordable housing, but land is an issue, and the contamination of lot 57 is an issue that has to be cleaned up. So, it's really kind of up to you what we're here to say. If you pass over it this time, waiting for the second round, and it doesn't pass at town meeting, then it creates more of a problem because we're trying to lock up the project and the person needs to move in June, and the house needs to be finished before the Volk School adjourns for the year, right? So
which is what, like beginning of June.
Yes, they're working
Montex
hard
is
on
early.
it.
In the
We
beginning
were
of
there,
June,
the
they're
wiring,
done.
the plumbing's in. We did
Well, I
get,
just mean the school.
Yeah,
They're
school.
done beginning of June.
yeah.
I guess I would say, just a quick opinion on this is to Jeff's point, there are some people applying and some entities applying for these ARPA funds that don't have other options. You know,
Yeah.
this Habitat has a couple of options. So if we can, these one-time-in-a-lifetime opportunities for people to recover some monies that were real effects to them during the pandemic, if it could get rolled back into a second round and, approved still tonight as a backup plan, but still keeping the CPC or CPA, whichever, article going, that feels like it might be the right thing to do. I don't know, this is my opinion.
I agree with you, because I think the same thing about the small businesses that really could use the money, and for them to have the opportunity, should Habitat get funded tonight and put the money back in because CPA goes,
Yep.
then that to me is a win-win scenario for everybody.
I agree. So, okay, any further discussions, other items they want to bring up?
Well, the bottom line on this particular item is, this ARPA money can be used for many, many different things, right? Virtually anything we want to use it on, we could use it on. CPC can only be used for specific things, one of these being this home project you're working on. So just the increase in flexibility to shift this to the ARPA bucket, I think would do everybody in town a benefit. Assuming, of course, you get your money passed at.
And that's the
town.
caveat.
That's
I
the
think
caveat.
that's something we need to be very cognizant of, because if that spigot gets shut off, then suddenly there's no funding there.
Right, understood.
All right?
Okay, anything further? Sir,
Hi, Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road.
I'm gonna start calling you Mike, just so you know.
Okay.
You come in every week.
Heather, question for you. Of those top 8 projects, how many of those are construction projects?
Well, the feasibility is not construction, but it will be a study. Let's see, improvement easements aren't construction, communications aren't, Lombard Road reconstruction,
Would be.
and that's it.
Okay. My point being is that construction procurements are time sensitive. And with the construction season upon us, these contractors are trying to line up their work and get their bids in. And if I understand correctly from Travis, we have a 2-week period that the bid has to be on the street. And that, normally that's kind of a short period. That is the minimum amount of time. But if you don't get these advertise your procurements out there, then you have potential too much work out there. Contractors don't do a good job bidding. We start to run into weather-related issues. So it seems to me would behoove getting any construction-related project approved. As David said, you've got to have the money, quote-unquote, banked before you put it out on the street, because otherwise it'd be an unauthorized commitment. So after saying all that, I guess my question is if the vote goes tonight and Lombard Road happened to be one of the projects, how quickly would Travis be given authorization to put that project out on the street for
I'm
bids?
going to jump in before David answers. Some of that has to do with what we've already discussed, which is we don't have all of the money that adds up to these 8 things. So we have to, in addition to voting on all of these, we have to then decide which ones, and that's the sort of thing that we take into consideration. But we have to first discuss which other ones might be able to get bumped for a month or 2 that maybe aren't as time critical. So I guess was that answering the question there?
That was my point.
Sounds good. Okay. All right, I'm going to say it one more time. Anything further? Anybody? No? Okay, well, so we're here. Thanks, members of the committee, for your work on this, and we know you took it very, very seriously, and it's presented to us very clearly. So we're at the point now where you've recommended 8 projects to us, which at this point, discussion has not ceased, but I think we're at a point to entertain a motion to move forward with something.
But do we have to bump any of these? You said because they add up to more than the initial allotment.
We can still approve them, and we can, as part of the motion, we can discuss to push off the actual funding until the receipt of the second round of ARPA funds that come in.
Okay, so.
Well, to be clear, the Lombard Road project would take all the current funds. Correct, David?
It would take there'd be about 125,000 left.
Okay.
Yep.
But we have certain debts that are already out there, right? So the Route 68 improvement easements, that can't wait.
Right.
Because we already have a bill that we have to pay.
Yep.
We have the Agra metal blower that we have to pay.
Yep.
Right.
So I think, I'm okay with David's earlier suggestion too, which was, we can approve these and leave it to the town administrator to work internally to figure out, what projects they can fund when.
Based on time critical, based on, yeah, agreed. I think that's a good way to put it.
And then we don't have to figure that out tonight. We have an employee for that.
Well done.
All right, I'll, if it's okay, I'll make a motion that we approve to expend from ARPA funds the 8 projects as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's seconded. Is there any discussion? I would like to just add, do you think, David and anyone else, whether or not in that motion, there should be an amendment now to state that what you had just said a minute ago, which is we'll put
Sure.
the town administrator in
I'd like
charge.
to amend my motion to the following, to accept and approve the 8 projects to be funded out of ARPA funds with the provision that our acting town administrator, David Nixon, work internally to determine which order we can fund these projects based on available funds in the bank.
And I will still second it.
Seconded, okay. Discussion, further discussion?
I just had a question.
Sure.
What, if anything, that was going back and forth about the habitat, 25,000, what was recommended that they go with the ARPA money, or that the ARPA money comes back into?
No, that we go with it now, and if they get it at CPC, then it goes back into the
Okay,
mix.
all right.
Any further discussion or questions?
I think the only thing I would add, and I know I didn't throw it in the motion on amendment 2, but is just to make sure that we're clear with these and that the board's intent is that if any of these projects come in under the amount requested, that they return back to ARPA for further appropriation.
Okay, I wasn't clear, and I don't think the amendment was clear, so can we just...
Let's try for round 3.
I think
Good enough.
I think that
I'm not doing well today.
I think
No,
that
just
happens
kidding.
automatically.
Okay.
Does that happen automatically,
Yeah.
David?
I mean, we've never done this before,
Okay.
so.
Well, it doesn't.
So sure.
It doesn't go.
We just
It
want to make sure
stays in the town
departments.
account until
Yeah.
it gets paid
So
out of the
it's-
town
it's-
account.
It's a grant,
Yeah,
so if you
Okay.
spend X minus 1,
yeah.
that minus 1 goes back to the original grant.
Yeah, because you don't pay for it until you pay for it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
if it's not that amount, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like the communication portable radios, if they come in at 17,400, instead of the fire department having an extra $400, that rolls back to ARPA.
Yes.
Okay.
To make it clean, if you wouldn't mind a second amendment that says, any remaining monies go back into ARPA, simple as that.
And further amend my motion. Any remaining unexpended funds should return to ARPA from each project.
And I will second it for
Can we-
a third time.
Can we clarify the projects, please?
Sure. For clarification, the projects are as follows. The Public Safety and Town Hall Feasibility Study in the amount of $65,500. The Route 68 Improvement Easements in the amount of $89,150. The Communications Portable Radios Project in the amount of $17,400. The Lombard Road Reconstruction Project in the amount of $575,000. The Agra Metal Blower in the amount of $7,675. The Ragged Hill Road Habitat NCM Home Build in the amount of $25,000. The Town of Hubbardston Essential Employee Premium Pay in the amount of $60,000. And the Electronic Sign Project in the amount of $48,400.
Just one more question, as a devil's advocate. What happens if any one of these projects are more than what they put in? I'm assuming, but I know that's a mistake, but I'm assuming this is what they're being granted. They can't say, well, now we need more money, because I would be very much against that, because then that is less for everybody else who's still waiting.
I guess I would say,
So-
if I could jump in real quick, I mean, there is another round still, so there is an application somebody could make for an additional amount that would be considered by the ARPA committee.
So these people can come back and ask for more?
So we're not restricting the,
We have in paper.
I mean, these people are our people, like the
No,
fire
I know,
department.
but we also have 11 other applicants that are still waiting.
No, I'm
But
aware
if
of
they,
that.
these people can come back for a second bite of the, you know.
I mean, we're not, it's not-
Well, yeah,
Okay.
there's no restriction.
there's no
It's like
restriction.
Okay.
All right, okay, well, I think discussion has completed there, and we're gonna go to a vote. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes?
Yes.
Chris?
Nay, opposed.
Okay, opposed, so we have 4 yes, 1 opposed, and the motion passes. So David, could you just get back to us on, what we've just asked you to do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good, thank you. All right, next, we have, on our old business is the Keep America Beautiful,
Heather, do you need this back?
Thank you.
with 4 appointment requests and a discussion of next steps. So, I don't know, who wants to take this? Do we have 4 appointment requests?
Yes, we do.
We do, okay. So those 4,
They're all together in the drive, so you gotta keep scrolling to see all 4.
Looks like we have Sarah McMaster,
Yep.
Amanda V. Knott, Laura Foley, and Laura D. Geronimo. Is that right?
Sure.
Well, I can't tell if that's an M or an N, so.
okay.
Yeah, like,
All right, so that's 4 out of 5, I guess, right, is what we said?
Yep.
Um,
Actually, I think you said 8.
5 to 8 was
5
the
to 8,
original, yeah.
Potential.
Okay, well, we've got 4.
Can you take them one at a time, or can
Nope.
we take them all 4? So
All
just
4
to
at
accept
once.
them? Okay. Make a motion to accept the 4 appointments that are requesting to be on the Keep Hubbardston Beautiful committee.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. And so next steps is also on here.
You want to skip the marijuana, that's quite ready.
Okay, but real quick before, fine, we will, but let me get to the next steps first. So we had another item on this Keep America Beautiful, is what the next steps are.
Oh, yeah.
I think the next steps is we need a complete committee first.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna punt and say we need a complete committee first. Okay, so we'll wait for one, let's make sure to, we don't forget about this or push it too far down, but
Laura
it's
was asking how.
Numeral 8, we have none. We keep that on as a standard item just in case. That was Ryan's doing. Item 9 is Roman numeral 9 matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I have one for me anyway, and that was the email we got about the QRSD joint meeting.
Yeah.
Super fun.
We'll go on to the date, the 26th, I think
So,
was
or the
the one that.
26th or 30th, or I'm going to try to call that
I
up.
think it was the 30th and then the 6th.
Yeah.
One,
Requesting that
the-
it be
the
the
meeting was
entire
the-
board,
Yeah.
all 5 select.
The meeting was the 30th, and then the open public thing was the 6th, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so I'm reading it here.
All the way down at the end.
You're correct, yep, so we're proposing that a joint public meeting take place on Wednesday, March 30th at 6:30, and that the joint public hearing take place on Wednesday, April 6th. So what I'd like to know is, if we would have a quorum there.
They're both up at, in person, correct? In Barry. We're supposed to be in person, not Zoom.
Both meetings will take place in the Educational Support Center located at 872 South Street in Barry.
But now you mentioned quorum, I read that they were
Both Wednesdays.
hoping that it would be, complete boards would be present.
No, quorum is a complete board. So
So
we
three of us.
request that a
No, I
representative.
meant all five of us as opposed to three.
No, it says or, indicating that a quorum of your board is available. That's all it says. So, I don't know if everyone's looked at their schedules. If not, they want a response by Thursday, March 24th. So we've got a couple of days. If anyone, I'll receive the responses. How about we do that? So, if you want to give them to me tonight and say you can be there or not be there, let me know. If not, you have to the 24th. So I'll just start with you, Katie. Can you or
Well, technically, I have other meetings, like normal, but I can if I need to be.
Okay.
I will ditch my other meetings if I need to.
Okay.
And that was 6:30, right?
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday the 30th.
Wednesday, nope, it'll be the wrong Wednesday for you.
That's 6:30 right there.
Yes. 6:30.
Chris is not available on the 6th, or the 30th, just to let you know.
30th. Okay. How about you?
I am, I believe I am.
Okay, Jeff.
Yep.
Why is Chris not available on the
You.
30th?
Because that's your meeting. You have a meeting every other Wednesday.
That's, no, it's the last one. It's the second and the.
Oh, never
or
mind.
whatever,
Then
the first and the
I
third.
take that back.
Second and fourth.
My secretary recalls what she said about my schedule.
Does that change whether you want to go or not?
Yeah, I'll
But
go.
the second one you can't go to because it's the first, right? Or is it you have the meetings on the seconds?
How do you guys know so much about my meeting?
I know.
Because we all know everything. We have to pay attention.
All I need to do is get back to them with a
Yes,
quorum, and I
30th,
just found
yes.
out we're going to have one because I can do it too. So we
Okay,
are going to, the 30th, I'm going to respond and say, that yes, we have a quorum.
All right. Does that mean I'm going?
I'll let
Are
you
you
know.
including?
You don't have to go now.
Yeah, I don't think
Well,
you do.
I have no idea because I was too busy. We were too busy planning your schedule for you. You didn't hear what they were doing.
David's going to post
If you
it.
have a conflict, we only need 3 of us to go.
Yes. Who's
All
the
right.
three?
Are there any other?
Me, Heather, Dan, and
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Are there any other matters that weren't anticipated that anyone wants to bring up?
Is this anything you need to?
That'll come up in executive session.
Gotcha. Okay.
No?
No, just next time, can we come
You
back?
can't say no, then give one.
Yeah.
I know,
Whatever
I'm
you
sorry.
get.
Well, yes, but I just always have my usual, and just next time, can we, I'm sure it will already be on the agenda, but in case it's not, if we can go back to the building commissioner and budgeting,
Okay, we'll be talking about that in executive session.
but on the formal agenda for
Okay.
next meeting.
All right. Yep. That was to David then.
Yes, and then just one last question, how is the new veteran service officer working out for us? Have we,
Seems to be fine.
okay, and our veterans are happy?
They seem to be well satisfied.
Awesome,
Okay.
that was it.
All right. Anyone else have anything else? No.
Don't say what.
All right. We are at public and press questions. Anybody have anything out in the? You guys.
The same question.
Same question. There are a few bylaws that are being proposed by the planning board. I understand they typically get not only presented from us towards you, but also I believe the finance committee has to review them. When will that officially take place?
The finance committee's going to be meeting next week. They haven't posted yet. Probably going to be Monday.
This coming Monday?
Yeah.
And then from there it comes here to the select board for them to review?
Yes, they're going to be looking at it the 11th of April.
On the 11th itself?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there any, do we need to go present to finance, or are you guys, the best bylaw and the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, which we've talked extensively about.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So, do you need more presentation from us?
I think we ought to call up Susan Rain and find out if your 2 zoning articles have a financial component to it, in which case, if they do, definitely the finance committee wants to be involved. If they don't see a financial aspect to it, then you don't need to see them.
Have they been presented to them yet? Do you want me to initiate that, or?
I think I sent the the draft warrant over to Susan earlier today, but I'll make sure that gets done tonight.
It's okay, will you follow up with me if they want me to come?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Otherwise, we'll see you April 11th, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
All right, anything else, public press? No?
Make the motion and that we'll move into executive.
Yep.
Move to adjourn from the public meeting and to move into executive session, after which we will have not come back to a public meeting. And the executive session is for the select board. Into executive session is for the provisions of MGL Chapter 38, Section 21A1, to discuss reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or to discuss discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Roland Jean. Executive session 12, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Town administrator.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll roll call. Katie?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Chris?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Dan? Yes?
Okay.
So,